Hey, Ariel. Like your plants, Lobelia? Is that ivy? Can you guys hear me? Test, test. Mic working. The Bluetooth is awful sometimes. Yes. Thank you. Give it a couple more minutes. Latest adventures at Nathan's house, the air quality has gotten even worse. I haven't even looked at the EPA quality, but man, it's awful.
Well, do you have to wear certain masks when you go outside, Nathan? Like what kind of precautions do you all do when that happens?
Stay indoors. I think that's about all you can do.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. This is a tradition now that I've started. Every time we meet, every class, I'm gonna gripe and complain about my air quality.
Can you even have like your air conditioning on? Because that brings air from outside, even though it kind of sort of purifies it, I guess.
I leave them running. I don't know. It makes me nervous because I've got a 9-month-old baby. So I worry about the air quality in the house.
Oh, definitely.
152 on the air quality index, unhealthy.
Oh my. And is it, and this is a stupid question, is it hot right now where you are or not as bad?
Well, how hot is it over there?
It varies. We have the house open today, so we're lucky. Like one time this summer.
Let's see, today the high was 93. 75. Oh man.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
humidity's gone down a bit, but it's been kind of not nice. But not like you guys haven't. Oh, man.
75 sounds lovely.
Yeah. Like I said, we opened the windows in the house. It was great. Can everyone see my dog Riley behind me? I thought I'd put that up today. He's under the table right now, but he's my buddy. He's getting old.
It's a good looking
So-
dog.
Hey, he's a sweetie. He's had a lot
Is
of
he a-
health issues.
Is he a barking dog?
Yeah, but only if there's a reason. I just can't always figure out the reason. Squirrels, leaves, strollers, No, he's a hunting breed, so, but he's good about it. He's not too carried away. Usually when he barks, I know it means something. So, yeah, he's got a lot of health issues now, and we lost our other dog and our cat not too long ago, so he's very special. So he's my mascot this week. Thanks for Billy. I think he's cute too. He smells bad right now. He needs a bath. But he had a hip problem, so he couldn't do anything like that. All right, I'll shut myself up.
Yep, just one more minute and we'll get started. Okay. So welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Let's talk about the assignments really quick. So I posted an assignment yesterday that included a bit of mocking, and the instructions weren't very clear because we kind of made some last minute adjustments to remove some of the mocking parts. I went ahead and pulled that homework. You shouldn't see it on Google Classroom anymore. What I think we're going to do today is spend some time, we dug pretty deep and we moved pretty fast yesterday. So what I want to do today is I want to slow down. I want to get everybody running code on their laptops. And then we're going to walk through an exercise and make sure that everyone understands the different moving parts to writing a Jest test. After today, you should walk away with working code on your laptop that you wrote yourself, that we'll all write together, but that you wrote yourself, that demonstrates how to do a Jest test. As far as mocking, we might get into a little bit of that today at the very end. We'll see how time looks. And then tonight, I'm going to add a homework. We're going to just skip the one from yesterday, but I'll add a homework tonight. All the homeworks going forward, just to be 100% clear, all the homeworks are going to be due at midnight on Sunday during the week. So no homework due before class, the day before the next class. Okay. So does that sound good to everybody? Maybe this would be a good time to do a poll. I see people shaking heads, thumbs up.
I like being able to code because I've been taking a lot of notes since you started, but I feel like they're just not doing me justice. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some coding. Thanks.
I agree with Latonia. I like to watch, you go through, because if you're trying to keep up, sometimes you're so busy trying to keep up, you're like missing it. But a nice combination between the two is really good. But if you just walk us through it, part of our brain isn't doing what it needs to do, which is the coding part. So,
Right.
so I appreciate that. I personally would find that more helpful if it works for you. Thank you. Thanks, Latonia. I agree.
Cool. Okay. Well, so let's do that as the game plan for today, and we'll just kind of slow down, get everybody on the same page, and work from there. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen. And you can reference my screen because I'm going to do a little bit of driving, but at a certain point, you're going to take over, all of you are going to take over and run some of this on your computer. So yesterday we talked about, I set up an example for password validation. We walked through writing Jest tests for a function that had password validation in it. And what we're going to cover today is some of what we did yesterday, but very explicitly, we're going to go through each step. So what you saw yesterday was when we want to write a Jest test, when we want to test our code, what we did was we first found where the code was that we were going to test. We created a file, a testing file for it. And then we wrote some test code in it. We used Jest functions like describe and it. And then after that, we made the actual expectations, the assertions inside of those blocks. So I've added this to the slides. I did quite a bit of tweaking on the slides last night. I added an example that we're about to work on. So if you guys can go ahead and go to the careers. I will also put them in Slack. We could do that really quick as well. Let me grab my terminal. Yeah, of course. I have no problem putting these things in Slack if it makes it easier to find them. So to cohort 2, module 9. Whoa. Can everyone still hear me? Oh, I think my circuit breaker just tripped.
What does that mean?
Sorry about that. Let's try this. Yeah, there we go. I think I'm drawing too much power on this outlet. Whoa. All right, we're gonna shed some stuff. Okay. There we go. I'm gonna dump the slides into the Careers in Code students chat. So slides are in the Slack chat, but on your on your computer, if you could go to the Careers in Code classroom code base and make sure that you pull down the latest. If you're using GitKraken or the GitHub tool, make sure that you pull down the latest, because again, I added this example last night. So if you don't pull the latest, then it won't be there. But when you pull down the latest from that Careers in Code classroom code base, go into the cohort 2, module 9, day 3, additional Jest example folder. That's where we're going to walk through all of this. Yes, question?
If I pulled down just a few hours ago today, I should be good. You didn't add anything since then, correct?
Just for funsies, full. It's just a good practice. I don't know. I've been all over the place today.
That
and-
was working in the files that I copied and, okay. So the main one we're concerned about is called what again?
So go into the cohort 2 folder, module 9,
Right,
day 3,
right.
additional Jest example.
That's what, okay, thank you.
Mhm. Just give me a thumbs up if in chat or somehow, and let me know once everybody's gotten to that folder.
Hey Nathan, this is Shah. I get the same error when I run npm start.
Oh, that same pre-flight check error.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh man, Brian, I'm gonna probably need your help on this. There's something real weird going on with the npm start on
Yeah.
Shaw's machine. Have you seen that pre-flight check?
I'm familiar with it. Shah, can you post well, maybe you have already, and I just because I wasn't here yesterday, I didn't see it, but like, can you post that exact message you're getting?
Yeah,
You can
it's,
have oh, go ahead.
it's posted, and let me close this thing. Student pasted code. It's the last code that I pasted yesterday. Exactly same thing.
Okay.
Pasted at 8:22 p.m. yesterday.
Ah, I see what's going on. If so, let's see how much in depth do I want to get here. Really quick, when a package is resolved by node, what it does, it looks in the node modules directory to try to find it. It turns out though, if that package isn't in that directory, it'll try to go up a directory and look in that a node modules directory in that higher up level location to try to find it. So effectively, like, if you can have node modules directories all the way up the directory path, all the way to the slash directory, and it'll like automatically find node modules and all those sort of directories all the way back to slash. That's often really, really helpful to be able to have your things in multiple locations, or to have sort of a bunch of things at the root and then have a bunch of sub projects with like smaller sub amounts of packages in each of those sub projects. In your case, it looks like inside of the root of your careers in code classroom code base, you have a node modules directory. So if you go to the root of your careers in code classroom code base project and you delete the node modules directory, so just like rmrf node modules, or just go into Finder and delete it, and you go back and you try to run create React app again, I bet that'll work. If you want me to give you some commands you can type, or you want to do it more hands-on, let me know and we can make that happen, but give that a try first and let me know how that goes.
So let me quickly go to.
Let me just stop sharing, and you can share your screen and we can do.
Do you want me to share my screen? Let me share.
Yeah, that'd be easier.
Okay, sure. So I'm here inside the queries and code. No, it's this one. Do you want me to delete this?
No, so what you want to do, really you need to delete that node modules directory.
Only this
But you
one?
probably, yep, that one. But also in practice, you can delete that package lock and package.json too. Like, those probably were added in there when you, well, taking one more step back, the reason why those are there is because you probably ran npm install in the root of your careers in code classroom code base project inside of that repository. And when you run npm install, with the -s flag, it's going to save the package into a package.json file. And if you don't have one, it'll create one for you. So most likely you ran that and you meant to run it in another directory, but you accidentally ran it in the root of the project, and that's why those showed up there.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So now can you run npm install here? Maybe you don't even need npm install. Maybe it's already installed.
Yeah, it should already be installed, but let's see.
Ryan, you are a wizard.
Oh, thank
I've
you.
dealt with this a few times before. That's all.
Cool.
Thanks. Thank you, Ryan.
And then once everyone is in that folder, has run npm install, npm start, are we all at that point where we see Nathan's web store?
Almost.
Okay. Where are you at?
Let's see.
Ariel's good, Brielle's good. It's good. Okay. Nice. Nice. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to work in today. So if you have npm start running, you should see my little. So let me do the same thing. Get to where you all are. npm start. Blow this up a little bit. Yes.
Should we be opening the JavaScript developer console or the whole inspect that's got everything?
In the browser.
Yes, correct.
Not yet. Maybe we won't need that.
Okay. All right.
So if you run npm start, you should see Nathan's web store, and it's got a bunch of things that I'm selling in my store.
Yeah, they're not, there's nothing actually there, but the cards or whatever are there, right? No images or anything. Okay, yep, I'm good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. If you see what's on my screen, then you're good to go. So if anybody doesn't see what is on my screen, then let me know. So I whipped this up last night because I wanted to try to get, this is Nathan's capstone. So I wanted to try to do e-commerce website, kind of like what some of you might be working on. But if you see in my web store, I've got a bunch of different items, and you can click add to cart, and it will add all these items to the cart. And you can hit remove, and it'll remove things from the cart too. Very, very, very fancy. So if you go ahead and open in your favorite IDE, so VS Code, if you're using VS Code, you can go ahead and stop the npm start. So hit Control C in whatever terminal you're using. You can go ahead and stop the server or the front end. And then just open up that folder with your text editor. And close these files. So we should have the entirety of the additional Jest example open in our text editor. Okay, so let's take a look at app.js. So once everybody's got this pulled up, we'll take a look at it. So if you take a look at app.js, you'll notice that it has this list of items. And these all represent the cards that you saw when you ran npm start. Now in your capstone, you're probably doing something more complex. I know you guys have been learning about Express and the database. So you're probably pulling, if you're doing something like this, an e-commerce website, you're probably pulling all of your data from a backend. But for our example, it's just a hard-coded list of different items and their prices. And if we scroll down, we have a React component called app. And it has a couple pieces of state. It's really just used to make those items pop in and out of the cart. And we're not really going to go too deep into what they're doing. If you want to take a look at how those items are being added into the cart, you can. What we're going to focus on today, though, is this function here, calculate total. I said yesterday, and I might have said Monday, when I'm writing tests, usually the things that deal with money, finance, those are the things that jump out at me and go, yeah, you should probably write a test for these things because they're pretty important. They're dealing with folks' money. So we're going to look at calculate total and we're going to write a test. There is no test for it. We're going to start from scratch. But before we get into the function calculate total, let's just quickly look at how it's being used. So down here, there's a button that the user can click. So they'll add things into their cart. They'll click on the different cards. And then once they click calculate total, this app is keeping track of all of the things in their cart. And it's going to take all of those items and it's going to shove it into this function. So on calculate total is called when they hit the calculate total button. And it's going to take whatever is in their cart and send it into this function. And then the code down here, you can just ignore. This is, again, all that stuff that I use to set up that front end. So on calculate total calls the function calculate total. And we want to test calculate total. So let's go ahead and jump into what calculate total does right now. So calculate total is coming from an import from the pricing file. So if you guys all hop over to the pricing.js that's in that repo. Does everyone see the calculate total function there? Okay. Thank you for the thumbs up. It makes it super easy to tell. Okay. I haven't written a lick of code for this. That's what we're going to do today. Test-driven development, remember that is writing the test first, then implementing the code. And we're going to do the test before we actually implement what calculate total does. Okay. I'm going to back up one slide to the walkthrough slide. So the rules, or rather the walkthrough, the steps that you need to follow when you're creating tests go something like this. Find the file that contains the code you want to test. We are there. We just found it. We're going to test that function, calculate total. Step 2, create a test file. Remember, when we create a test file, we take the name of the file that contains the code we're going to test. We're going to change the suffix from .js to test.js. So let's go ahead and create that test file, pricing.test.js. All right. Let's go back to the steps. Okay, so we created the test file. Now we need to start a describe block with the name of the function we're going to test. So let's go and jump back to the pricingtest.js. So let's start a describe block. So describe takes two parameters. The first one is the name of whatever the block is. And usually we just put in the name of the function that we're going to test. So in our case, the function we're going to test is called calculate total. So let's go into pricingtest.js. And for the first parameter, let's give this describe block the name calculate total. That's the first parameter that goes into the describe function. The second parameter is a closure. And it's going to contain all of the tests that pertain to this block. To write a closure, we make empty parentheses. Ryan, I'm going to pick on you. Do you remember what this is called? Is this a lambda?
Yeah, I don't know.
Arrow. It's
Right
just
now,
an arrow.
I do want to call out, in case people haven't heard the word closure before, you can think of a closure as it's basically like a callback, kind of another word for that kind of idea. So a function you put in a place where that function is called, and that allows you to pass like code as a parameter into your function. Similar to like the way we did it with set timeout way back in module 5 or with promises, where like you had a function you passed into it, and it's a way you can give sort of a parameterized bit of code for another function to run, if that makes sense.
Mel, I think you're actually right. I've heard it called fat arrow before. Ryan, have you heard it called fat arrow?
I have heard it. Yeah, I have heard it called that. Good point. I think a skinny arrow is with a dash.
Okay, so we've got our describe block. Now we are going to start populating with more stuff. Angry carrot. Like angry carrot too. Okay, going back to the slide. So we've got a describe block with the name of the function we're going to test. Now we start an it block with a description of what the tests will do. So it also takes two parameters. The first parameter is just like describe. It's a string that you pass to it that details what it is doing or what it should do or what it shouldn't do. So it's entirely up to you what you want to put here. In fact, I don't really know what we're going to do for our first test. So I'm just going to say it does something.
And
then
you
this-
said,
Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that you said we can use the word test instead of it. Both parameters are correct for this part? Or
Both are totally, it's entirely up to you.
No? Okay, thank you.
They're functionally equivalent. Yep. I think to illustrate the point, we'll write a mix of them. Although I don't think you should ever do a mix of them because it would be a little confusing. So it does something. We haven't really thought of the test cases for this function yet, so we're just going to put a placeholder there. We'll come back and give it a better, more descriptive name later. Second parameter is another closure, similar to describe. And then if I could get some thumbs up to let me know when folks are here, and we'll move on to the next step.
Can you tell me what color theme you're using? It helps me follow along if my colors match yours.
I have no idea.
I'm assuming they're going to be the same choices in VS Code as in WebStorm.
I'm using Material Pale Night.
Okay, thanks.
I think material themes. Actually, isn't VS Code where material came from? Or am I thinking of Atom? I don't know. All right, we're going to move on to the actual test statements where we're testing to see if something equals something else. Just let me know if anybody else needs a little bit more time and I'll slow down. Okay. So before we write our first expect something to equal, yeah, go ahead. Somebody raise their hand. Carolyn, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Getting a better understanding of describe. Is it kind of like const, or because you're not actually describing calculate total, or what exact, why is that word used? What exactly does it mean in the context of this?
Good question. Let's run this, and then I'm going to show what describe does.
Okay.
So good question, and I will
Thank you.
answer that in a second. All right. So let's write an expectation here, also known as an assertion from when we were writing the console asserts. So go ahead and write something that's obviously equal. So either the string something equals something, 1 equals 1, null is equal to null. As long as it's true, that's what we want. So we're going to go and run our test. Okay, and then after you've written this expect, put a semicolon there, go into your terminal, and in the root where you ran npm install, run npm test. And it should launch something that looks sort of like this, and it should say 1 passed.
Carolyn has a question. Oh, no. Got your hand raised.
Susan says thumbs up. Is anybody not able to see the npm test? Because Shaw had a curveball yesterday. Is anybody else running into any problems running? Latonia, do you want to share your screen real quick?
Sure. Is it supposed to ask me each time what kind of test I want to run?
No.
So it did that. The test. And it told me I failed.
Okay, hit, can you make that bottom terminal a little bit bigger?
Sure. Is that bit good?
Yep. Whoa.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's good. So go ahead and hit in the terminal, click inside the terminal and hit Control-C to cancel. You're in source, so CD up 1 level. So CD space ... Yep.
And then do I need a slash or not? I can't remember.
Nope, just hit enter. There you go. Now run npm test.
Usually I'm too high, too something.
Nathan, just a heads up. I don't think that's actually the problem.
Oh.
I think the problem is the first line of the testing file.
Oh.
I don't know why that's there, but.
Oh, where'd that come from? I didn't put it in there.
You did some advanced stuff on us. Worker threads?
Okay, so just delete this? Where did this come from?
Yeah, delete. Kill it with fire. Oh, I think.
Hello?
you
I'm sorry,
froze.
my internet keeps freezing up. Am I good?
You're good. Delete the import.
Okay, I should have just looked at the file instead of assuming it must be VS Code putting stuff in there because I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's strange. So to be clear, you get access to the describe keyword, it, expect. You get access to those keywords because you're running Jest. So you don't need to import anything in order to write these tests. Anybody else not able to get Npm Test? You should get, if you're not getting that test to pass, let me know. Otherwise, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how describe and it works.
I'm sorry, Nate.
Yeah.
I'm having some weird computer stuff going on here, so I'm a little behind, but for the NPM test, as long as we're in the folder we're working in, we're good, or do we need to get more down into the specific file that were the test file?
You should be at the root of that project. So you should be, if you run pwd in your terminal, the last thing that it says should be additional Jest example.
Right, so
be in the
that's
source.
Yeah, that's where we're doing the test at that level. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So I want to highlight what's going on here. Describe, the calculate total is what's showing up over here on the left. That's for you as a programmer. It helps you. So let's pretend like we had lots and lots and lots of tests in here.
You need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, let me back that up really quick. So this, can everybody see this? Okay, so this describe, the calculate total here is for you. All it's going to do is it's going to, when the tests run, it's going to print out the word calculate total there. It's meant to help you understand by looking at the test what's being tested. So if we called this something else like calculate total is awesome and hit save, over on the left, that string is going to update to calculate total is awesome. So all describe does is it lets us organize our things in our test.
It looks like
And-
Karen was running into a test suite that was failing.
Oh, Carolyn, let me stop. Do you want to share your screen and show us what you're seeing?
Okay. So I just, in the additional Jest example folder did a NPM test and
Can
NPM
you
test.
expand that terminal window, drag it up a little bit?
Sure. There. That should be everything.
Missing semicolon.
Oh,
So if you,
of course. I didn't realize there was more to it, or I would have scrolled up before and checked. So in which file though?
it's saying it wants a semicolon line 5. I'm kind of surprised because I don't have a semicolon line 5 and it's not complaining.
Let's see, describe, calculate total. All right, there shouldn't be anything on that first line because the open braces.
Oh,
I think the issue is that, oh,
There's an extra set of parentheses that isn't. No, that's
So
down there.
look on line 1.
Yeah.
The describe, calculate total. You see how you have a closing parenthesis after the end quotation mark?
Oh, I shouldn't because it closes at the end there.
So calculate total is the first argument to the describe function. Then the second argument is that whole callback, that whole closure. So that looks good. And then
Okay, so
this should pass. Is there anything else you guys are seeing?
That always confuses me, parentheses, and trying to get the logic behind it, and I always mess that up.
Can you hit save? And
Yep.
see if this, there we go.
I didn't even study and I passed. Woohoo! Thank you. Now, if I could get my Zoom window to behave and stop sharing. I've been having trouble with the Zoom window, so. All right,
Okay. So this string that you have been putting calculate total in, this is entirely for you. And in fact, you don't have.
Quick thing, Nathan. Susan says to describe as like a title.
I'm going to turn that back around. Ryan, do you think it's a title?
I think you could think of it that way. Like it's a sort of descriptor for a section of tests, kind of similarly to like you put an H1 above like a P tag in a HTML page.
I agree. I think a title is a good analogy for it.
Also, just to be clear, you don't have to have the describe. Like you can just put a bunch of it blocks the root, and yeah, it might be good to show what that looks like.
Right. So you don't have to do the describe. It's completely for you. If you don't do a describe, this is what the output looks like. So take out the describe, save your file, and then check out the output.
Similarly, you can also go multiple levels of describe deep if you really want to too. But I don't know if you want to get that nuts.
Like what kind of scenario would you want to do that?
Like one example is maybe you, let's say you're testing a function, and then you have a bunch of test cases you want to group in like one group, and then a bunch of test cases you want to group in another group. So there's just kind of a way you can create subgroupings of test cases to better organize it for yourself, really, is all it is.
Here's what multiple levels of describe looks like. So if you're in a situation where you need to go 4 levels deep with describes when you're testing, by all means, the describe block is for you, but it might be a good hint that maybe your testing be broke up into multiple files. Maybe, I don't know.
Jason, Nathan, sorry, quick question. So if you go this much deep, like 3 or 4 level deeps, then how about if one of the describe fails or something is wrong, then would that undermine the logic or the fact that you want to isolate your test?
So let's look at what happens if something goes wrong. So in my test, I've got something is equal to something. If I say that the string something is supposed to be equal to anything, and hit save, it's not the describes that are necessarily failing, although in the UI over here on the left, it's still going to show that ABC hierarchy. It's going to show that describe hierarchy. But it's the it block that's failing. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
So wait, I'm sorry, Nathan, I'm not clear. Did it go through all of them? Like Shah was saying, it didn't stop, it didn't fail to go through all of the blocks?
It went through all the blocks. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. But if it had it, we could use, didn't you talk about something called it only if you wanted to just isolate? So if you did stack them and then
Sure.
Okay.
So let's talk about how these describe blocks work. I'm actually going to take out all this nesting because this is just an example. But let's say that you decide you want to do a describe block, calculate total. Let's make this test pass. And then let's write a test that's outside of the describe block. Because you can write a test, you can write this it block, you can write that outside of describe. There's nothing saying that you have to have a describe around your test. But let's make this one fail. So when I hit save over on the left, when these tests run, we have one test that should pass and then one test that should fail because something is not equal to anything. If I hit save, so you'll notice that the calculate total This got nested inside of, it got indented one level, calculate total. Here's the does something. Oh, does anything. Let's change this just to make it a little bit more descriptive, so you can see the difference between these two. So notice how the calculate total prints out on the screen. That matches to this describe block. Then the does something test run, it returns green. That is this block right here. This passes because something is equal to something. And then Jest ran this. And this failed. So you've got one green check mark for this block of code, and then you've got a red X for this failing block of code. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that?
Carolyn, you've had your hand raised for a while.
In the chat. I'm having trouble switching between Zoom and the other windows. Zoom is being a bad boy and I'm not able to get in and turn things off. So sorry, the hand's been raised for so long, but questions in the chat.
If you don't use a describe block, if you don't want to have your stuff nested under this title, calculate total, just chop the describe off and just write your it. This is valid too. So watch over here on the left. Describe is purely for you for organizational purposes. So has everybody gotten a chance to play it? Does it make sense?
Kind of like a comment then.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a title, it's a comment, it's a way to organize your code, yeah.
So in the first line, we had describe and parentheses and all that. You wouldn't do any of that. You would just start with the next line of the function.
Yeah, you could write just an it block.
Or test.
Totally.
I don't like it.
Or test. If you don't like it, by all means,
Yeah.
use test.
It's like this. I don't like it.
But watch what happens over on the left. They're the same thing. It and test are exactly the same. So we will have the same output because they're both the same thing.
It's just more specific.
And since we're talking about synonyms, there's also a synonym for describe called context you can use, but I very, very rarely see that
Oh,
used.
yeah. We talked about that a little bit. Yeah. With state and stuff. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So at this point, we have looked at how to write the it, how to do the describe. I'm going to keep the describe because I think it helps make this output easier to read. It tells me exactly what the function is and then all the corresponding it blocks and test cases for it. But let's dig in just real quick on this line 4. Expect comes from Jest. It takes something, it compares to something else. There's a lot of other things that you can do. Like there's a to be method, there's a to be truthy, there's all kinds of test helpers that you can use. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to testing whether something is what you expect it to be. So we're going to go and write this function, and we have some expectations of what this function should do. Even though we haven't written a line of code for the actual function calculate total, we can go ahead and write some of those expectations. We can figure out in our head what this function should do, how it should behave. We can write those as tests here, and then go and implement the function. So this syntax right here, expect and to equal, that comes from Jest. That's just how Jest wants you to write your test.
Jahil asked, is expect a method that means another method for a comparison?
If by another method you mean, does it require having the to equal? Yes. I don't think you can just write expect and a value. I don't think that this is legal. Let's see what happens. Let's hit save. And I think it's going to throw an error because, oh, I don't know what this does. Is it? It's just evaluating. Whoa. I'm gonna say no, it doesn't. I have no idea what just calling expect with no other to equal. I have no idea what that does. So I'm just gonna say no. I wonder what WebStorm. So WebStorm's getting upset. It says that it expects a corresponding call. Yeah, I don't think that this is legal. Expect is a function that takes the thing that you are testing. Yes, usually what you would do is put whatever the thing is that you're testing, whether it's your function or your statement, usually your function, you would put it here in the parentheses for expect. And then you would compare it to what you think it should be. Does that make sense? So what we're about to do, and you guys saw this yesterday, what we're about to do is we're going to call our function with some different inputs. And we're going to expect them to equal something. That's how we write our assertions. That's how we assert that our function's doing what we expect it to do. But that's a very good point. Yes, this first part right here, usually you want to throw in what the thing is that's being tested that returns something. All right. Is everybody feeling comfortable, ready to go and jump into building the test cases for this calculate total function?
I still have a fail again after those changes we made.
What?
Just ignore it and move forward for now. I don't want to hold up
Um,
the class with my
Caroline,
failure.
you can post it in Slack and I can take a look. While Nathan's
Yeah,
doing it.
thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Actually, we've been going for a while. Would folks like to take a 10-minute break? Because then we can just go ahead and figure out what that test failure is. Go. Let's do 10 minutes. I need to at least use the bathroom and get a drink of water. So 10 minutes. See you guys. Hey, Carolyn, do you want to share your screen and we can, I don't want to steal your 10-minute break, but we could probably figure
I
this out real
usually
quick.
don't do much except what you described. So, and thank you for sharing, by the way. No, here I go. Sorry. A little punchy.
We're all
here.
human. Come on.
Oh, you are? No. I'm sorry. I'm feeling kind of cantankerous right now and punchy. All right.
Cantankerous.
So pricing.test.js, there's what we did. That should look just like yours, except my
You got
expected
that
Wednesday.
parenthesis back. The parentheses
Oh,
back.
your parenthesis. On line 2, look at the end of the string calculate total. Your parenthesis is crept back in. Think of describe as taking 2 arguments. Yep. One argument is a string. The second one is that big block.
And the other
I
thing is,
think
you know,
I have a
parentheses-
gremlin. That's what I've been told.
Then on the end of line 6,
Yeah, I
close
had one
parenthesis.
there and it didn't like it. So that's probably because of the other one. Oh, there we go. Those little things are big. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
So if
Yeah, now-
it's helpful to think about it this way, I think Nathan, you were getting on in this direction, but like describe as a function that takes 2 parameters. For the first one being a string, calculate total, and the second one being a function that starts with the second opening parenthesis on line 2, going all the way to the curly brace on line 6. So like that whole thing is a function, and there's the first parameter and the second parameter. Second parameter just spans multiple lines.
Okay, now say that again, because I still get fuzzy on these things.
So
Describe calculate is not a function. It sets up for a function.
say the subject of that sentence one more time. Sorry, I missed it.
I think I remember what he said. the line with describe is
Yeah.
not a function. It kind of sets the stage for the function. So, and test is not the function. The function starts at the end of that line and includes expect Wednesday, etc. Right?
Conceptually, yes. The term the function is a bit vague here, but I think from
Yeah, that's
context,
what
what
I'm.
you're saying, conceptually we got the right idea. What is important to realize is Jest is a JavaScript testing framework written in JavaScript. Like the whole file is JavaScript. So behind the scenes, describe is a function. Test is a function. Those are functions built into Jest that allow you to perform your tests. Like expect is a function built in. So those are functions that you call to like tell Jest how all your tests are organized. As parameters to those functions that you call the Jest functions, you have to pass it a callback or a closure, what Nathan was saying. That second parameter, both the describe and test, those are both like callbacks you pass to describe and test the built-in Jest functions. And those callbacks give you a way you can tell Jest, this is all the code in my describe block, or this is all the code in my test block. Does that make sense?
Okay, so tell me, what's the first callback here? Where does it start and where does it end?
The first callback starts on line 2, the second opening parenthesis. So right after calculate total.
Oh, line 2, I'm thinking it's the first line of the code, but I'm sorry.
First line of the
Okay,
code,
so
yeah.
that's what I was, all right, so the callback starts,
On the second opening parenthesis. So if you go back until the parentheses, if you to the left a little bit,
this guy is where it
nope.
starts.
The next parenthesis after that.
This one is where it starts.
Yes, that's where the first callback starts.
And it knows that because you've got the parentheses,
Yep, you've got the parentheses, the arrow, and the curly braces, and that makes
this
it
whole thing. All right,
so that, and then it goes until the first character of line 6.
all right. So this whole, wish I could like highlight stuff in a different way, but this whole thing is the callback function.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice job. That is
But
you could
within
assign
it,
that to a
there's-
variable and pass that in.
But within it, there's another callback function or not?
Yes. So within the describe block, there's a callback. There's also a callback in test block. So
Yeah,
on line
There it
3,
is.
the second opening parenthesis,
Yep. This guy here goes here.
and then where does it
And he
end?
goes to here.
Yeah, perfect.
Does it include the close parent in that case, or that's not in the callback right there?
Nope, just the curly brace. Yeah.
Okay,
The way you know that is the way the function's written. It's the open close parenthesis, the arrow, and then the opening curly brace. Then all your code goes in the curly braces, then the closed curly brace.
okay, and that tells JavaScript this goes together. Okay, I need to go through module 4 again because I'm still like, JavaScript. But I think it's starting to come. So, sorry,
No problem, you're good.
water. You know, when you explain things, Ryan, and Nathan, you're great too, so this isn't any reflection, but when you just, I don't know, it has a certain zen to it. You know, you really understand it. And so does Nathan. I don't mean, but the way you, don't know Nathan well enough to know if he's at this point with me yet, but it's just, I don't know, like when we were chatting at Open Hack and stuff, it's just, you're like spiritual about this stuff. It's in your blood.
I think a lot of software developers are, I guess you could say, spiritual about this stuff. Like,
well, I mean, not everyone is quite there. And it's just like, when you explain it, you may say the same thing someone else said, but it's like the philosophy of it. It's like,
yeah.
oh yeah. And the choir singing in the background and all that stuff, and the rainbows and the unicorns. No, it's
Brian
just,
is poetic.
it really helps.
Wow, all the compliments are just flying here. I don't know what to say.
Well, no, I did not. Yeah. So look at my resume. No. But yeah, no. Sorry, I'm getting carried away now. I don't know what's my problem today. I think I'm off the wall here. But anyway, so, and Nathan, I didn't mean to detract from your explanations or anything either. It's just I've had more chance to interact in a think way with Ryan. Normal conversations always turn very cerebral, which is great. You know, I haven't had that. But anyway, well, thank you. I need a drink. Water. And I have to go do that unmentionable thing that we don't talk about, even though it's been shared.
Oh man, we are all adults. You guys cannot crucify me for
No, I'm just
my problem is I have a debilitating addiction to seltzer water, so I chug like 6 glasses of this during the class. So
well, I haven't heard you burping or otherwise. I mean, that tends to create I have someone in my home that drinks a lot of that kind of water, and it's like noise. All right, I will be back.
so looking at time, I'm thinking, Ryan, that we might have time for a little Cypress at the end. I think we're gonna I'll do some mocking for office hours.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hey, let me share my screen. I'll steal it from you. Carolyn. So we got to the point here. Let me move this out of the way. So were you, Jahil, were you able to pull up, get to this folder, the additional Jest example folder? Yeah, pull.
Yeah, I did.
Sweet. Okay, so were you able to run npm test and get the test runner launched?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, all we've done so far is we've written this describe, the it, and then we've played around a little bit with this expect. So if you're at that point, you're right where we're
So yeah, so just like create what we have for the code and pricing.test. Yes.
Yeah, so all of this test code goes into a file called pricing.test.js. So create that file.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, the steps for getting here, if you pull down that careers in code base, the slides in module 9, there's a walkthrough right here that kind of describes the same stuff we've done. But if you're at this point, then you're completely caught up with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. If anybody else is not at this point, let me know. We can easily get you to this place, because we're about to jump into writing some tests. I did not pay attention. Did we say 10-minute break at 6:28? I think we had 10. Cool. All right, let's get the show on the road. Let's make this do. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, question. It may not be very relevant. So this describe is a function that takes two parameters. This
Right.
calculate total and also the other one, the callback. So we tested if we remove the describe, it works. Still it works. So how about like fetch is also a function kind of that takes returns a promise dot then.
Yep.
So if you remove fetch, still do you get the result? I'm kind of just curious. Or it's something different.
So comparing this to the fetch that you would use in the browser to make network requests, fetch
Yeah.
returns a promise.
Uh-huh.
So how would that work with something like this?
So if you remove describe, it works.
Yep.
The word describe. So in the case of fetch, if you remove fetch, would that work? Obviously not. So
No,
it behaves
yeah.
differently.
It does behave differently. These rules about whether you can use describe, whether you can use it versus test, these things are only related to Jest. If your code calls fetch and you remove your call to fetch, you're not going to fetch anymore. So yeah, the rules are different here in the context of testing with Jest. Jest makes things like the describe optional. Describe is just a construct inside of Jest that is, you can use describe, you can choose not to use describe if you don't want to have this piece of text pop up over here on the left.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, great, thank
Okay.
you. It's not kind of global with JavaScript, it only works in the context of Jest.
Exactly. This is only a Jest concept. Totally. No, you can't drop calls. That is a good point. You cannot drop calls in normal JavaScript. This is only for Jest.
Thanks.
And it's part of this magic that you buy into when you use any framework. Like, you have to learn some of the weird idiosyncrasies of that framework and how it behaves. All right. Let's jump into actually writing meaningful tests, because this test right here, something is equal to something, doesn't really tell us anything. And it certainly doesn't test the function calculate total. So let's put a pause on Jest land. Let's put a pause on the Jest code for a second. And let's go take a quick look at what would we be testing calculate total and do? What does it do? So hop back over into app.js, and let's go look at where the calculate total function is being used. This will give us a clue as to what things are being passed into it and maybe what it should return, what calculate total should actually do. So here in app.js, in the source folder in app.js, on line 45, the function calculate total is being called on some cart items. I mentioned when we got into this file for the first time, I mentioned that cart items is a list of some of these things that they pick. So it's a subset of this giant list of items. So if someone clicks on a card, this is going to get appended into the cart items. If someone clicks on this card, that's going to go into the list of cart items. So calculate total is being called with a list of objects. Each object has a name and a price. So a bunch of these are going into that function. And then calculate total is supposed to take all of the items that are going into the function, add up all the prices, and return the price. So we can find out the sum of all of the cart items. Does that make sense to everyone? We'll go a little bit deeper here in a second. Okay. So let's not start writing a line of code for calculate total because we're doing test-driven development. We're going to write our test. We're going to think about how this function should behave first, and then we're going to go and actually implement it. All right, so let's go jump into Pricingtest.js. We have our describe for calculate total. Let's talk about what the first thing we're going to test that this function should do or how it should behave. So one thing that calculate total does, I think that should be clear from looking at app.js. One thing that it does is it takes some items and it returns the total price. So maybe we start with something as simple as it should add up the items. So go ahead and update your it block to have something a little bit more descriptive. Again, this is only for us. This isn't going to change how the tests actually run. Totally. If you like tests more than it, by all means. Okay, and then as was pointed out before, the first thing that goes into expect is the function, what we're actually testing. So let's go ahead and pull that function in here. So I'm gonna, my IDE auto imports it, but the import would look something like this: import curly braces, calculate total from the pricing file. So we're gonna go import that function so we can test it.
Yeah, mine's does the same thing, but it's because we did the npm install, so it's gonna do it too.
Cool. Yeah, it's so nice if if your IDE does automatic imports. All right, let's go ahead and for now, let's empty out the parentheses on expect. Our tests aren't going to run because expect needs something passed to it. But let's empty it out for now and let's think about how we're going to call this function to set up this test. So calculate total takes one argument. It takes a list of items that we're going to sum up. So let's back up even further. Let's just create that list of items. So I'm just going to make a variable. I'm going to call it items. You can call it whatever you want. And if we go look at app.js, we can see the shape of what each item looks like. I'm just going to go steal a couple from here. I'm going to steal these three. I'm going to go back into pricing test and add them to my list. And what I'm doing is I'm just grabbing some items, putting them in my test. I'm going to use this as my ground truth. I'm going to use this as the input to my function. I can, in my head, I can add up each of these prices, and that's going to tell me what this function should return. So grab yourself some items, throw them into a list. Are we going to map on price? We could. I'm actually going to go way simpler. But here's the thing. We're going to write some tests. You can write whatever your implementation is that you want for calculate total. And as long as it passes the test, it's your call. The implementation is totally up to you. All right, so once you've got some items, go ahead and pass them into the calculate total function and save the output. So put it into a box. Let's call it result. This can be a const too, because we're not going to change it. So we've called the function with our items, stored whatever the total is into a result. Actually, I'm going to keep switching out on you guys. Total probably makes a bit more sense than the result. Okay. So I don't know what items you guys picked in your test, but for mine, I'm going to expect that the total return from this function is equal to 12 plus 5, 17 plus 2, 19. And if I implement calculate total correctly, this expectation should be true, and my test should pass. So go ahead and write your own expectation and give me a thumbs up when you guys are at this point. Or if you have any questions, let me know. I only grabbed a couple items just to make it easier for me to do the mental arithmetic. Feel free to grab as many or as few as you want. 3 is a good number. 3 items would be good.
Nathan, I must have missed something. I don't have a function for my calculate total in my pricing page. I must have missed that.
Here in pricing.js, you have nothing?
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, I have the export, the function, but anyway, it's not working.
You haven't missed anything. It shouldn't work right now. We haven't implemented calculate total at all. Yeah.
Oh.
No, you're good.
Thank you.
Right. This function does absolutely nothing right now. So all we're doing right here is we're setting up the test. We're asserting that our function should do something, but we haven't written the code to make that function actually do anything yet.
Hey, so it's Ariel. Just to clarify, we should be failing this right now?
Yes. Because
Thank God. Okay.
the coding. No, guys, if you're getting failures, that's great because we haven't actually done anything. If I look at my npm test right now, it says that I expect 19 because that's what I'm setting to equal to be. But what my function is actually returning is undefined because we don't have any code in there just yet. And that's okay. That's good. We want to set up these tests to fail to start with. Yeah, it's weird. Test-driven development where you write your test first before you even write a single line of the actual code that your customers are going to have. It's a weird paradigm. Yeah, it is. And to be fair, I'm not always doing TDD. Like most of the time, I'll write the code just to prove that I can do it and make sure that there's no wrinkles, and then I'll come back and do tests. Sometimes if it's really complicated, I'll reach for TDD.
Sort of
there's no.
Oh, sorry. There's sort of a middle ground I kind of do too, where I'll actually write what I put in the its, like I write those statements out as comments just to like figure out what tests I want to have. I then write the actual code for my function, and then I come back and I write the test at the end, but using all those sort of prompts I wrote for myself. And it kind of, to me, lets me plan out like what the tests are going to be and like organize my thoughts on what the thing should do. But I don't have to worry about going through this whole like exercise of writing all the tests, having them fail. Because something else will happen is I'll get halfway through writing the function and realize, wait a second, I actually want this function to act a little bit differently. And now I've got to modify all my test cases anyway, because it works a little bit differently now. So I don't know, there may be a different idea too.
Yeah, something to point out there, again, there's nobody that's going to sit there and slap your hand if you don't write your test to completion first before you write your code. This is just a strategy to expose you to. Yeah, and it can feel wrong, right? It's strange to intentionally set yourself up to fail all of your tests. But it will get satisfying here in a moment when we start implementing the function and we start making these tests pass. Okay. If everybody's at this point, if you're not, drop a message in Slack and I will stop, but let's go ahead and move on to other test cases. Can anyone else think of test cases we could set up before we jump to implementing the code?
We can test, I guess the name, or if the item has a name.
If the item has a name, okay, let's do it. So we're going to write another test. To do that, we're going to create another if block. We can also do it in here. We can write the expect, we can munge the two tests together, but let's just make another if block for this second test. So it should add up the items. Keep going with the name. What do you think? How do you think the name is going to affect this function? Test to see if the item name, that would be involved. We don't have a database for this example. I see where you're going though. That would be a good test to have.
Can we
There's
use
a
like
lot of really good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say probably can we use like either like name.length is greater than 0, or either check if like I guess the attribute exists.
I don't think I'm actually going to use name at all in the calculate total function. But what I was thinking of is you got me thinking, what if we passed in items that didn't have a name? Would our function still work? So there could be some tests around name. I think calculate total though is going to only look at the price. But I think one idea that somebody put in chat, the Latonia, the if card is empty, that's a really good one. So if we give it no items, we just give it an empty list, what should our calculate total return? So I've created another it block. And the test that I want to write is something that ensures if we pass it an empty list of items, we call the function on the empty list of items and we get a total. What should we expect that to be? What do we want our function to do?
0.
Yeah, 0.
Shaw had a really good answer, negative numbers.
Ooh, a negative price. We're going to give you money if you take what is in our store. All right, let's do one for negatives. So let's write another.
That could actually just be like, just not allowed, like invalid input, throw an error, that's it. So this is an interesting point where you get to make a call, like what you want to make happen.
Now, should we allow it into this calculate total at all? I'm going to argue that if your database contains items that have negative prices, that's a database and backend concern, not necessarily a front end. Because I don't know, what would you do? Would you flip it? Would you say, no, it's not -12, it's really $12? Dangerous territory.
Or could it be a mistake with the cart? Like you have items in the cart and you're adjusting the amount and they let it go negative.
Yeah.
Right? If there was a cart error.
Fun story, when I started this project, I had floating point errors that caused the cart to go negative, exactly like you described. You'll notice I've mitigated those issues by making all of the prices a nice round integer instead of its $13 or $12.50. All right. That's a good question, Ariel. It depends. And I think we talked a little bit about this. Maybe we talked about this on Monday, because I think Ryan chimed in on this. But it is, in my opinion, it's the author's responsibility to come up with these test cases and to think through all the different inputs. But it's also extremely helpful to have like a QA person, someone who has seen these kinds of things and can come up with that checklist to manually run through. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just was thinking about that because that's the perfect job for me as a negative person. But I just didn't know if somebody actually did that. That was all.
Oh yeah, there's totally that. When I first started my career, I shadowed a QA person, and so they didn't write a single line of code, but they developed these huge spreadsheets of different interactions with the app that they would test. They would manually go through and test. So it can be a whole bunch of people's responsibility. It kind of depends on the company size, whether they actually have hired folks that are doing that. But I think as a good programmer, that the onus of coming up with these tests, of thinking through all the different edge cases, all the different scenarios, I think that onus is on you as the author of this code. Other people can help too, though. Yeah, no problem. Interrupt me at will. Other test cases, I think this is pretty good. We could do one where we chopped off and passed in one item, but I think let's just run these two test cases for now. We're handling when the cart is empty. We're handling when the cart has multiple items in it. Is everybody at this point locally with their stuff? If anybody is not, please interrupt me. Okay. Now that I've dragged this on and on and on, and everybody's irritated to death because they have all these failing tests in their terminal, let's go ahead and make those tests pass. Let's get our calculate total function to do what we want it to do. So you don't need my help to do this at this point. You guys know how to add and loop over items, but I'm just going to implement it myself. And I'm not going to do a fancy map. I'm just going to for loop over each item in the cart items list. Oops, Python. And then I'm going to add that to the total and return the total. That's my solution. But as others have pointed out, there are better ways of doing this. There are probably cleaner ways of doing this. At the end of the day, does it matter? Yeah, it does, because you want your code to be pleasant and readable and maintainable. But do the tests care? Let's see. No, tests don't care how that function is implemented. as long as the test cases pass. So I'm getting green check marks on my computer for the empty cart scenario and handling multiple items. Once everybody's got green check marks, let me know and we'll move. Thumbs up for Dominique, nice. Everybody got green check marks? Life is good, yes, cool. Oh, Kyle. I'm actually gonna stop. Let's see what you got. Do you want to share your screen?
Sorry, I just had to move it over from the other screen and make it the right size and everything.
Oh, no worries. So let's look at the test where it says expected and received.
Mhm.
So the expected is 27.
Mhm.
So you're expecting all the items to add up to 27. And what you received was undefined.
Mhm.
When you see undefined, think, what is the function returning? Where is the undefined coming from? Why am I getting undefined as the total from this function?
Because it's not pulling in the values of the items, I guess.
No, you are pulling all the items prices correctly, and you're summing them into the total box correctly.
Mhm.
So lines 2 through 5 are correct. What is calculate total returning?
Oh, I need the return. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. But if you return on line 4,
Mm.
what's going to happen? Oh, wow. Okay, so you check out the test output. You expected 27, but you received 10. Why did you get 10?
Because it returned the first time it added them up.
Very, very good. Yeah.
So
When would you want to
I
return?
return total underneath here.
Okay.
After finishes. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, inside the loop, at the end of the loop, right?
Is that the end of the loop?
No, it's not. So here.
Nice.
Okay, thanks.
Very cool. Nice. Anybody else?
Still failing.
Do you want to share your screen?
Sure. I like to share.
Okay. So on line 3, see where it says for const item of cart items?
Mhm.
So the const part applies to the variable declaration of item. So move the const to before the item inside of the parentheses on line 3.
Okay, it says for const space item of cart. Isn't it before that?
No, it's not. You're not declaring a const parentheses item of cart items. You're declaring const item, the item that you're pulling out one by one in that for loop. So the const doesn't apply to everything in the parentheses. Const applies to just item. So you would move const into the parentheses right before item.
Oh, on the big screen, that's my screen. I thought that was your screen and I got confused. Okay, so for const, no parent, just, I'm sorry. Say again. And I was confused looking at my screen on the big monitor and I thought it was your code and they were exactly the same. So,
Oh, you're fine.
so
See on line 3, const, where const
Mhm.
is positioned. You're
Mhm.
saying for const
Item.
parentheses. Right. Instead of saying you're declaring a constant of parentheses item of cart items, instead it's for const item. So you're declaring item to be the constant, not everything inside of the parentheses. Yep, exactly. Yep, exactly.
So the const is the item of cart items. Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, this is another const. Const is just fighting you today. Go back to the pricingtest.js. See the errors coming from pricingtest.js on line 6.
Oh. Do you have to be able to type to be a developer? Okay.
There you go. Congratulations.
Hey, thank you. And Ryan, obviously I'm all set because we got answered. Thank you.
Shoot. Okay. How are folks feeling at this point? We've gone step by step through this process. If I said, go write me a test for your capstone on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being the least comfortable, most nervous, 3 being I could crush it, 2 being I could probably do it, but I need some help. Or 2, I could do it, but I would need to look at some materials. 2.5. 2, 2, 3, 2, 1.5. That's fair enough. Okay, so what I want to do for the homework tonight is I want to give you some more experience with this example. And for the homework tonight, what I want is this calculate total. Right now, it's just taking in all these prices. I want to add a second parameter to calculate total called sales tax. And for each item that we go through the cart and add to the total, I want you to add a sales tax to it, whatever's being passed in. I will put this on Google Classroom. You don't need to start working on this now. I just wanted to explain the homework for you tonight. And I'll put it up on Google Classroom. I'll put links. I'll put a description, same thing that I said. But we're going to take this same setup that you've got on your machine right now, and we're just going to expand on it a little bit. I want you guys to feel really comfortable working with these tests and building off of them. So with that in mind, would you guys feel comfortable doing that? Do you feel like we need to do more exercises, or are you guys ready to jump into a homework with this? It doesn't matter. I'll address those details in the Google Classroom. Totally. Yeah, we could do that. So we're at the point right now where we can jump into how we would start on that homework. How much time do we have left? We've got like an hour left. I'm torn because I really want to get into the cool automated testing. We're going to use robots, and that just has me really excited. But I think it would probably be better to just start on introducing you guys to the homework. Does that sound better? Robots tomorrow? Cool robot testing. All right, let's start in on the homework. I haven't even typed this out for Google Classroom, so we're gonna work on this together. All right, so everybody on their machine, go into pricing.js. Look at the calculate total function. it accepted cart items, which was one parameter. Add a second parameter. Call it sales tax. Call it tax. Call it sales tax. Anything you want. All right. Yep, that's it. All right, then hop over into Pricingtest.js. And let's talk about part one. So before we start talking about the requirements for the homework, open up your terminal really quick. Are tests passing? They are. 2 used to TypeScript. Okay. So sales tax is not being passed into either of these two functions, but that's okay. JavaScript will take it. So for part one, what we're going to do is we're going to write some tests that exercise sales tax. Yeah, Susan, in pricing, for the homework, what we're going to do is we're going to extend this function. So calculate total is going to accept a second parameter. Are you guys not seeing what I'm not sharing? I'm so sorry. I'm sitting over here hacking away. Yeah, pricing.js, it needs to look like this. Takes the sales tax. Doesn't do anything with it, takes the sales tax. Okay. And then in pricingtest.js, for part one, we're going to do test-driven development. We're going to write some tests before we implement the function, before we actually add sales tax. So go ahead to these two tests that you've already written where you calculate total. What should we put in? For both of these tests that you've written, put 0 in. So that will keep these tests running, but indicates that you're passing at 0% sales tax. So leave these tests alone. This is going to be your test to ensure that you can add up these prices. Okay. So for part one, what I want you to do is I want you to think through all the different scenarios for sales tax. So you're going to pass in let's say you're going to pass in a decimal. So I don't know how much of this I want to give away, because you guys have seen this example. Well, let's do this together. So what should the name for our first test for sales tax? What should we give that name? What do you guys think we could test with sales tax? If it's included, yeah. So these tests up here are passing 0 for a sales tax. So they shouldn't include a sales tax at all. So for these tests that we're going to write, we're going to pass in sales tax. And we're going to check and make sure that this function behaves correctly. So it includes a sales tax would be a good name. Okay. So we've created another if block. At this point, you'd probably want to create some items. I'll leave that up to you to put whatever items you want in there to go along with your test. And then you'd want to call the calculate total function. But because we're testing the sales tax behavior of this function, we'd want to pass it something like maybe it's a 10% sales tax. I know sales tax doesn't apply to each item, right? It's just for, Montana doesn't have a sales tax, so I haven't thought about it in a while. Sales tax apply to the whole bill, or does it apply to each item? It's the whole bill, right?
It comes out the same because it's the percentage.
Okay. So either way you want to implement it.
I mean, you pay more for all the items, but whether you calculate each one or you calculate everybody, you're still getting the same.
It's still
Yeah.
10% of everything, right?
Exactly. I think.
So we're going to call this function with functionality that we haven't yet developed. We're not actually using the sales tax. We haven't implemented the sales tax argument in our function, but we can go ahead and write what we expect it to be. So expect total to equal something. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions?
So Nathan, this is Latonia. On this one, are we looking for a numeric value? We'll go through and do that again, or because my mind keeps wanting to say total plus sales tax, like we're having variables in there, but that's not what we've been doing. Does that make sense?
Are you talking about how you actually calculate the sales tax
For
in
the
addition
two
to?
equal. Yeah, for the two equal, we're actually putting in the numeric value. We're not saying two equal in the parens total plus sales tax, right? Like we're not using variables to represent what it should be.
No,
Okay.
no, no. Just go ahead and put the numerical value in here. Yeah. Break out the calculator, the pen and paper, the abacus or whatever, and just compute whatever the numerical value is for it and use that. Does that make sense to everybody? Off the top of my head, I can think of two test cases for this. A couple more if you wanted to add some squirrely edge cases into what sales tax could be. But for the homework, let's try to have at least two different test cases that exercise the sales tax. Once you have those test cases, then it's time to go and jump into calculate total and actually do the sales tax addition to each item or to the final total.
Do we want to check if like sales tax is either 1 or above, like 1 point something?
Yeah, that would be a good one.
So that-
200% sales tax. Yeah, back when I was in Arkansas, I think the sales tax was like 12%. It's ridiculous.
Ariel asked, are we also not importing sales tax into the test file because we exported it?
So we're not importing sales tax because sales tax is a parameter of the function calculate total. So when we imported calculate total, we imported all the parameters that go with it. Does that make sense? Cool. Also, depending on how you do your sales tax, be aware of these old tests. They may not continue to pass depending on how you do your math. So you may want to think about if 0 is passed in, what will my function do? Yeah, for Carolyn, for bonus. Here, okay, I'll put this in the Google Classroom. For bonus, add a third parameter.
Oh no, I didn't mean to. I'm a senior, so I don't know. I still have to pay tax. But I didn't mean to make extra work.
Pass your social security number into the function. Your tax ID.
Nah, that would be a no. I'll give you my dogs. Sorry, guys, don't shoot me.
Or Brielle was saying earlier, like the tax is different for food items. Like you could have a tax exempt Boolean on some things or like a reduced tax. Like you could get nuts with this.
Or if you're the 10th shopper, maybe you get a free HDMI to USB-C cable. Have you guys seen all those websites where they've got like the spin the wheel? Have you guys seen that? Yeah. But yeah, for bonus, implement spin the wheel in JavaScript. All right.
So I'm off the hook for the bonus then, right?
Yeah, we've come up with crappier versions
I
of the bonus.
don't want to make enemies. Okay.
That is it. That's all I've got. So the rest of the time, feel free if you feel comfortable with this. Feel free if you want to drop off. And like I said, I'll get the Google Classroom assignment put up, and you can upload your assignment whenever. It'll be due on Sunday at midnight. Otherwise, I'll be in here, and if you guys have any questions about the homework, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to answer what I can.
I have a question not about this homework, but it is about mocking.
Yeah.
I understand why we do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of get the mechanics, but I still don't understand how it really works, because how do we even get the code to test or show that what it would do if the backend was involved when it's not? I don't totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite get that piece of it. I know why and all that, but it's like, with Axios is Axios and da 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 da. When you do a mock, it's simulating what would be happening if you did that with the backend, and somehow that's written into the program.
Yeah, exactly.
So that it's as if you did do that without all the downfalls of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
No, that's it. And honestly, if that's all you walk away from this week knowing about mocking, that's excellent, because every situation mocking is going to be a little bit different. And if you want to come to office hours this weekend, I'm going to talk ad nauseum about mocking. But it's just one of those situations where, when you get into your capstone, I don't know, because I haven't looked through everybody's capstone, but I would be surprised if you have a function as simple as calculate total. I would be surprised if you had just simple JavaScript functions like the ones that we're testing. What you would normally see is you've got functions that call other functions, or depend on other modules, or depend on other things to be there, databases, backends.
Yep.
Yeah, so, and that's typically what you see in most code bases. I just don't want anybody to run into a situation where they go, I have no idea how to test this, because I have no idea what the database is going to give me or the backend is going to give me. And if you know mocking is the secret ingredient in that situation, then you're already off on a good start.
So there's another secret ingredient too, which is worth pointing out, which is if you want to test a bigger function, often a better way to go about it is to break up that function into smaller pieces and then test the smaller functions.
Yep, which is true of everything, chunking it, and it's a life lesson, but definitely, and then you can really see, because one thing will affect another, and you see how it works all together, but it could be one little thing in the very middle of it that's the bad boy, and if you can isolate that, you can keep it in for recess. So true.
Nathan, did you use the words unit and integration test yesterday yet?
We've talked about unit. This is what we're doing. Every test that we've written so far have been unit tests. I haven't made the distinction yet between unit and integration or functional. Saving that for the cool robots tomorrow.
Okay, fine.
So pumped. I hope
Sorry,
you guys
Ryan,
get
you have to wait. He's jumping at the bit over there.
I mean, you can use these robots to do all kinds of stuff, like log into grocery store websites, like buy toilet paper for you off of the Costco website, do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Not
So-
just testing.
Fun fact, there in New York State, there was someone who, with the tool we're going to be talking about yesterday, built a bot they could use to get some older family members of theirs access to COVID vaccines. Like they built sort of an automated thing that would like
Punch
get
the
into
button.
websites and like,
That-
well, yeah, like spam
yeah.
click the thing. And
That's
beat the
actually
rate.
been in the news quite a bit in different states, and I forget where it first happened, but it was just some high school kid. I don't mean just some high school kid, but a high school student who is just IT brilliant who did that. And then some other people. Yeah. Pretty cool. That is a good capstone for you. These smart people, I tell you.
Well, I'm actually going to go ahead and start work on the upload.
Brielle and Ariel both asked when office hours were. Is that something you want me to make a poll for, Nathan, or you want to make a poll for, or just going to make a call, or what?
Let's see. So let's, how long do office hours normally go for? Yeah, like an hour. Yeah, let's say an hour. If you guys want to pick a time, I'm open all day on Saturday. Yeah, Carolyn, the store site probably won't load anymore because we've changed the definition of that function. So the front end is still calling it without a sales tax. So we would want to, if we wanted the front end to continue working, we need to go and update the usage of 10 or 11 on Saturday works.
Yeah, it actually stopped working at some point before we did all that too. I don't need that for the homework though, right?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. I won't worry about it.
Yep.
Okay, seems like the consensus in the chat is that 10 a.m. on Saturday will be when it is.
10
So
a.m.
I'll
it
post
is.
that in Slack too.
Oh, Ryan, you know what I failed to do?
What'd you fail to do?
I failed to hit the YouTube thing.
Oh, it's recording to the cloud though.
Yeah, this is why you should be host. I don't use Zoom enough. Man. Who would, is that Jesse that would perhaps look at that? Yeah, let me talk, because I'm pretty sure he could pull the recording from Zoom and upload it to YouTube.
Either Jesse or Max can do it.
Okay, or
Or
Dana.
in theory, we can do it too. I just haven't figured out how.
Okay. I'll make sure that's up after we all disconnect from this. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Hi, sorry, Ariel. So you wanted 3 passing tests for that homework? I know you haven't gotten it up yet. I just got the first one to go, so I wanted to check.
Nice. Let's say at least 2. Give me a third one and that'll be more than enough. Honestly, if you could think of more than 3, go to your heart's content. Like, 'cause this is a muscle that you should work on flexing. Is thinking of different test cases. It's only 7:30. Yeah, you get the rest of the evening back. Do fun other things, making dinner.
Okay, so class is officially over.
Yeah, yes,
This
absolutely. If you
seems
guys are
weird. Okay,
if you guys are good, by all means, feel free to drop off. I'm just sitting here for questions, and I'm working on making the classroom.
I can't really start on the homework without having the whole thing. Okay, it
You
just
got it.
feels weird. Okay, good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.
See ya.
Take care. Thanks.
I posted the 30-second feedback in Slack. I'm going to post it in the chat here too. Fill that out if you can.
Site 61. Okay, the assignment's up. I'm going to clean up my example and also push that to the code base if you guys want. So my code from today, you can have it. Is everybody just crushing through it? Nobody's hit a snag or got a question or anything?
Oh, I'm not doing it. I don't, I'm not doing it. Because
Okay.
do I have to change the function? Because
Yes.
sales tax is grayed out.
No, so it's going to be grayed out because it's not, nothing is calling it yet with the sales tax. Do you want to share your screen really quick?
Sure. I was just trying to do math and then I realized, yeah, hold on.
Hey, I had to ask whether percent of individual was more than the collective, so don't feel bad about your math, sharing your math.
Well, because that's what made me wonder, because it's comma, it's items, comma, 0.10. So
You're absolutely on the right path. So you're passing in a sales tax in your test, and then the only thing that you're missing is the 2 equal, put a numerical value. So that's why you broke the calculator out. Yeah, this makes sense.
well, I guess what I don't know is like the 10% of these items is 2.7, but the total is 27. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be putting here 27 minus 2.7 or just 2.7.
Add the sales tax into the total. So what the function should return is the price of the items plus the sales tax.
Okay, so I would want to put here my 229.7.
Exactly.
And then I just save and test, or?
Have you implemented any of the sales tax logic in calculate total yet?
No.
Perfect. Yeah, you're doing TDD. Keep going. I mean, if you could think of another test case, then write it out. Yeah, your test is going to fail because you haven't yet implemented the sales tax function.
I see. So we're just doing this part right now. I don't have to do the second part.
After you get done writing a couple tests and you got a couple failures lined up, then please do go into calculate total and implement, add the sales tax into the total.
Okay. I'm sort of blanking on what else you would do with sales tax though. Like what, that's why like when you said people have to figure out their own tests, like I don't, like I'm already like, I don't know what else you do with sales tax. You add it on like.
Yeah. I mean, there's some weird ones that were suggested, like 200% sales tax. If you could think of some other crazy ones, if you can't think of any, that's fine too.
Well, I'll sit on it. I'm sure maybe something will come up.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
I know I didn't. Okay, so I didn't put everything into a function.
Yep.
I was gonna do that later.
Yep.
I'm gonna share my screen right now. Cool.
So that what you were doing down there, I kind of liked what Susan was doing, where she just, yeah, like what you have on line 29, where you just go and crunch the number and throw that into the 2 equal block. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because what you've got on line 27 you really want to put into calculate total. You want calculate total to make that computation and return it. So feel free to just throw the raw numerical value, bust out the calculator, throw that into the parentheses for 2 equal, like you have right there, 29.16.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up the calculator right now.
And everybody's going to be a little bit different because you've got a couple of different items. Yeah, you've got 10, 14, and 3.
So I'm adding right now 10 plus. Right now my sales tax is like 0.8. Well, it's New York State, so whatever. Which is 0.008 or something. Okay. 13. Oh, okay, I see the problem.
So you got it. You got it figured out.
I think so. Maybe not. I gotta. Yeah. Let me. I'll ask you for.
Yeah. Anytime between now and midnight on Sunday, if you have a question, feel free to shoot me a message. Happy to answer.
One slightly related thing I want to point out, often when I end up writing tests like this, where I've got some sort of big number I'm computing, I'll actually put in a comment above the math I did to get that number. Because something I really hate is when I have to end up later on like updating one of these tests or like modifying it. I've just got this magic number that I have no idea how it was calculated. It's really nice to have that math equation so I can redo it and like prove to myself it's right. So maybe just something to think about.
Okay. Thank you. I'll add it. Appreciate it. Yeah, I got the same number, 2916. But it's still not maybe it's because of what I did. So it's taking this number right here.
Mhm.
But if I remove this, I get this.
Yeah. Yep. This is the floating point errors I was talking about before. For now, feel free to just round that to the nearest two decimal places. Oh, you already have that. 2 fixed. Yep.
Yeah. So I did that, and I don't know. Maybe it has to be like exact. Something might be.
Oh. See how in the received it's wrapped with strings?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting a type inequality here.
So maybe
where,
it's math or something.
No, I think so. 2 fixed. Something in the sales tax total is returning a string.
No, Nathan, I'm pretty sure 2 fixed returns a string.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yep.
So I just turned it into a number. So now it's
Nice.
passed.
Very cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just want to test it out to see if this is correct. Yep. All right. Yep. It was a string, I guess. Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What Jahil just did though is actually a pretty good thing. Like if you take a test, you see it passed, and you modify one of your assertions and you see it fail, that's really good to know because you know your test is actually working. Because there's nothing worse than spending all this time making a test and then realizing like it wasn't running, you were looking at the wrong test, like any of these myriad of options. So like purposefully breaking a test and seeing it fail and then fixing it and seeing it pass is a really good way to make sure the test you're looking at and the test that you're thinking you're looking at are the same, or the test that's being run is the same, excuse me.
Because these tests are for us. They're to help us. Customers are going to see them. Does anybody else have any other questions? Should we break early?
I'm just a little stuck on like how to have the program handle certain things. I guess I'm thinking more about the program than the test, but like, so for having not allowing sales tax in negative numbers, you can just kind of reset it to 0 if somebody enters somebody, or whoever's I guess programming this. The sales tax should be automatically whatever it is for that state, but I'm just thinking, so that was easy enough. But then if you're not going to allow more than a certain percentage, like you probably want to just prompt the user to enter another number that was less than that amount. I'm just trying to figure out how you would handle that and how I would make the test for that.
Well, kudos for you for going above and beyond. I guess I would, if I saw this in practice, I would.
I just don't even understand who that user would be. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm not understanding the program because the sales tax is going to be automatically set to whatever the state's sales tax is, right? Like,
Right. You kind of need a value to fall back to. If the user enters in garbage, what could you have like a sane default to fall back to?
I mean, like decide that the biggest sales tax it supports is 15%, and anything more than 15% is going to be set to 15%, or I don't know. I mean, even if you're prompting the user, you're right. You have to pick a number.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure how any of that would work. Maybe check what state you're in and what the sales tax is in that state, but that requires like a database or something, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and also letting the browser come up with the price for your cart is probably not a good idea either. You probably want to do something like that on the back end, but.
So maybe I should just think of a different test that's like not a good example to try. I don't know.
Just go to the Chrome inspector and just change your sales tax to 0%. I bet there are websites out there that do that. No doubt there are websites out there that do this calculation on the front end. And anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to give you the 30 minutes back to do what you will. All right, let's call it. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Good luck with the homework. Again, you've got more than enough time to noodle on this, to think about it, to work on it. So if you run into any problems or something is confusing or you'd like some more clarification, just send me a message. I'll be more than happy to answer. So other than that, have a great rest of your evening, and I will see you all tomorrow to talk about robots. Get pumped. It's going to be awesome. All right, guys, have a good night.